first of all, it's a leaked memo, so he's giving advice to some potential clients, I would assume, and he's putting his thoughts down on paper. He didn't go on Twitter, he didn't go on Facebook to declare what he thought. And if you dig into what he's saying, a lot of it rings true in terms of ensuring the fact that we're doing what's in the best interest of Canada and not misunderstanding that Mr. Trump very may well walk away from these negotiations, and as such, take that into consideration when you're developing your strategy.
Do you think that the present government doesn't think that Trump could walk away from these negotiations?
I don't know. Perhaps, I think what I heard from the Minister of Foreign Affairs is that she's very concerned about it, and I think that's fair. But that being said, there has to be a plan B, and they haven't indicated for us what it is yet. And, you know, Mr. Harper criticized some of the things and some of the strategies. That's going to happen, but he didn't do it publicly. That was an obtained memo that somebody wanted to publicize, and I think that, you know, Ottawa, the official who gave comments, and Chrystia Freeland, I think they jumped a little bit too quick off the mark to criticize what the former Prime Minister had to say. He's just putting his thoughts in paper, and a lot of people agree with him.
Well, let's parse some of those comments,
sure,
and we'll get through this. Harper wrote, it does not matter whether current American proposals are worse than what they are now. What matters in evaluating them is whether it is worth having a trade agreement with the Americans or not.
Yeah.
But is it a bad deal for the United States? Better than no deal.
So it's kind of like that burning platform situation where do you jump off or do you stay on the platform? And the reality is that when you're in a negotiation, you're not negotiating in this particular case about specific terms, what you want to add, what you want to take out. This is a whole or nothing is what the analysis is now, which is it worth losing NAFTA over this particular issue? And that's what he's saying, in my interpretation. That's how the government should be approaching it now. And we've got some time, right? We're rolling into negotiations again in the new year.
But how do we know that the government isn't keeping that in mind and that they have a public face and they have a negotiating face, they have a negotiating position, and that this is all part of their strategy, and that his comments perhaps will derail that strategy? Because let's face it, he's a man who is listened to in Washington with a lot of credibility there and a lot of friends in Washington. So what's the possibility they're going to go to the Trump people and say, hey, look, here's the inside take on all of this?
Not a chance. I don't think that's even plausible. I think everyone's going to see the fact that a former prime minister is giving his perspective on negotiations, which he's only seeing through the lens of what's happening in the public. So he doesn't have the inside scoop. So if I were advising...
He's not able to pick up the phone and talk to people who may be involved in the Trump administration?
Oh, in that side, I think for sure that he understands from it. He said himself, he understands from his trip to Washington that negotiations are not going well. But in terms of this government and having the inside track on how our government is negotiating, I don't think he has that. And he's just reacting to what he sees publicly. And that's what we're seeing publicly as well. Everyone sees the same thing. And he's just putting his point of view forward on how to approach it and what he would be advising if he were in the spot. And I think it's very valid for him to do that. And it's good that we're talking about the deal, because I think it does bring home to Canadians that this is a really important deal. It's important to the point where we should be weighing what the United States is asking us for in return for having a deal at all. And I think that's an important point to remember.
And as we all know, the stakes in this are enormous.
Yes.